Operations Section Chief.
Thanks, Toby. So for the update tonight, I'll go ahead and start. Let's start over at Devil's Punch Bowl. That fire hasn't moved much. The helicopters pretty much kept it in check for the last several days, and we inserted about 40 people in there today from both from the top and the bottom. They're picking their way in there, trying to find the hot spots and take care of those. They did request one additional crew. I know before we talked about just putting a few folks in there, but as they got in there, they're starting to feel much more comfortable with getting more people in there and taking care of that area quicker. So, we still hold out the opportunity, let's say, to burn if we need to, but we want to go direct on that. Firefighter safety is a real concern in there, but they have found a way that they think they can work that safely and go in there and wrap that and then start moving inward slightly and pick up some more heat. So that's good news. We'd prefer not to burn that out, and time, we've been patient with it and figured out a way to deal with it. And the weather's been cooperative. It hasn't really gotten up and moved a lot during those windy days. So that's where we're at there in Devil's Punch Bowl. Coming around on Division Romeo, that stretches pretty much from Grizzly over to Lake Davis. That hasn't moved for probably 4 or 5 days. We're in that mode where we keep moving that equipment farther forward that was there and picking up some of our equipment that's there because we're starting to feel comfortable with that area on the line. One thing I will say, because of the weather conditions that are coming that you just heard about, we are not moving out of these areas too quickly. We pay attention to that, and we'll leave plenty of folks in there to be watching that in case we get erratic winds and thunderstorms. We need to have those eyes on the ground to make sure that the trees don't torch or throw something that unexpected and nobody's there to see it. So we want to identify those rapidly if and when that happens. Moving up from Lake Davis, going north through Turner Ridge, and then that's been good. Getting pretty cold. You can see if you look at our infrared, you can see that there's very few spots left out there, which shows scattered heat. So the heat signatures are going down dramatically in there, and I know it's been talked about, but the fuels are so dry that they're consuming much more rapidly than they do on some of the other fires that we've been on, and in some other areas that have more moisture. So the interior heat in the fire is burning out a lot quicker. And then moving over from that area, Red Clover, and then over on to Horton Ridge. That I saw a helicopter working there maybe an hour and a half ago, and I drove down the 177 supporting crews in there. So there was a little bit of aircraft use right there. There's a point out there where that's several miles long, and rather than stretching hose all the way out there, and there is no way to get a vehicle out there, sometimes those crews will call for helicopter support. They'll bring buckets. The crews will open up that material that's on the ground, and then they'll get out of the way, and the helicopter will drop water on it and help them stir it, help them, give them something to stir into the ground and put that out. So very minimal use of aircraft in here today, but it was used slightly. Moving over to the old sugar fire, this all is starting to look really good. When I came by, couldn't even really see any smoke. A lot of retardant up here going up to Dixie Mountain that was dumped a couple days ago in order to enable the crews to construct hand line up to that fire. So this whole area in here is just remarkably looking remarkably better than it was a couple of days ago, due to both a lot of hard work of the firefighters as well as that southwest wind that's been pushing on it, and those breezes help things burn out also and make the smoke dissipate a lot quicker. Into the sugar fire, this whole piece in here is caught up in the fire. Don't expect that to move. This piece right in here, this is an island of about 2,000 acres. It has a dozer line here. I drove through that today. It all looks good. There's not much heat up in there, and we expect that piece of ground to stay green. Then coming off the rim, this burned down to the highway a couple nights ago, and then another chunk burned down last night. We had folks in there. Some of the folks got off their engines and walked the line and tried to see if there was any heat left in that sagebrush and taller brush along that area to try to prevent what's happened the last 2 nights in there where they had to close the highway. So that's pretty much what they did in there today. We had 3 crews work that piece of line from the bottom of the dozer line up the escarpment, and they did a lot of good work in there. They asked, I believe they were going to ask for a little bit of water this afternoon, but they didn't ask for any retardant or water during the day, and that's indicative of how much that line had cooled down. So what they were doing is they'll open up those areas that they find that are hot, they'll open it up to the air, and they'll start to burn out better that way, and then they'll wait till in the late in the afternoon, call for a helicopter, and then they'll have targets for them, basically, where they've opened up that material and have them come in and just hit a bunch of targets at the same time with one fuel cycle on the helicopter in effort to be more efficient than calling the helicopter back and forth every time they need a couple of drops. So that's kind of what went on there today. This area line in here from the escarpment back over all the way pretty much through this hazardous area and all the way back, all this dozer line coming through Squaw Valley and then back over to the Walker Fire's looking good. One thing I would point out, this is about 15 miles of rough country where those two fires came together, and there will be a time in the future, more than likely, where this whole piece will turn black. We'll go ahead and consider that contained. When I flew yesterday, it's not trying to get through that fire at all, from what I could tell when I flew. So rather than putting people out there on 15 miles of rugged line and making them walk along that edge, we look at the vegetation that's grown back in a 2-year-old fire, and we fly it and look at it, and we come to the determination eventually that that's a contained edge, and that's what's happened in a few other places on this fire. Might happen eventually on this chunk here where it bumped up against the Walker Fire, and this chunk that bumped up against a two-month-old fire there, and Sugar Fire from the Beckworth Complex. Lastly, I would say that one thing I haven't brought up a lot is night shifts. We do have over 250 people out there tonight. We'll keep that beefed up in numbers because we want to keep an eye on all this country in here that has the potential to cause either disruption to the highway or problems for residents. And then also the Dixie Valley area, we focus on those two areas. We also keep the night shift over at Taylorsville. So we have over 250 people out there, spread far and wide, and that's one thing I wanted to point out tonight, that sometimes I fail to mention that how large that night shift is and how much we expect it to continue. Taylorsville, as far as, I believe the residents went back in there today. As far as this fire's opportunity to escape, it's going down every single day. It went down a little bit today. Every time those guys get in there, they're rock hopping, they're getting down in there and putting fire out on the ground. They're using helicopters to do that. So you're going to see, for the folks in Taylorsville, you'll see those helicopters flying. That doesn't necessarily mean it's heating up. Those helicopters are bringing water to the crews so they can cool it down. So each day that goes by, I would expect you to look up there and see less and less smoke. We are going to try to get one additional crew in there tomorrow, so that would be 60 people. And in a period of a day or two, I think you're going to be happy looking up there with the amount of smoke that you saw, let's say today or yesterday, as compared with what you'll see in a couple of days. So a lot of progress there around in the Devil's Punch Bowl above Taylorsville.